should we do the fucking? Oh, let's start with this. The Taliban co-founder has arrived in Kabul.
The Taliban's most prominent leaders, Abdul Ghani Baradar, returned to Afghanistan after years in exile. So what do we know about him? Well, he was one of the 4 men who founded the Taliban back in 1994. And he became a linchpin of the insurgency after the Taliban were toppled by the US-led invasion in 2001. Then, in 2010, he was actually captured in a joint US-Pakistani raid, but he was released in 2013. Afghan officials hoped that he would encourage the Taliban to engage in peace talks with them. Well, fast forward 7 years, and he signs a deal, not with the Afghan government.
Chat, what are the hashtags for Hassan tweet selfie day? It's like, is it Hassan tweet selfie day and what else? 2Yil 821. Okay, thank you.
But with the US Trump administration, it culminates in the withdrawal of US troops. We know what happens next, don't we? The Taliban quickly take control of the country, and then after years in exile, he's finally able to return to Afghanistan. Well, our security correspondent, Frank Gardner, is here with me in the studio. It's lovely to see you, Frank. There are so many questions concerning not only the Taliban, but also how they fund themselves, who they are. So let's start off with this latest development and Baradar. How significant is he within the whole story?
He's very significant because he was very close to Mullah Omar, who was the original founder of the Taliban back in 1994. He's a relative moderate compared to some of his more extreme colleagues. He's actually...
I love that they're just forced to talk about the Taliban with terms like this. It's so fucking awesome. Okay? It's so awesome. Yes, they're relatively moderate in comparison to its other Taliban counterparts. Here you go, chat. Here you fucking go. Wait, why is face trending? The moderate head of Taliban. They're only doing wonderful jihad in moderation and also implementing their version of fundamentalist Sharia laws in moderation.
He spent 8 years in prison in Pakistan, and he was only released in 2018. He's been instrumental in those peace talks you mentioned in Doha and Qatar. He's been very much at the forefront of those. I think the big questions now are whether this second iteration of Taliban rule in Afghanistan is going to be different from the earlier one. The public signs that they're putting out are that it will be, that they are prepared to be much more moderate or at least less extreme. They're saying the things people want to hear. The big question is whether once the spotlight is off Afghanistan, and it will move off it inevitably, eventually, are they going to revert to type, oppressing women, suppressing human rights, carrying out all sorts of very brutal punishments, oppressing free media, or will they actually be a more normal country that is a part of the rest of the world? Some countries, Russia and China, are giving them very much the benefit of the doubt and are reaching out to them already. The European Union has withheld its recognition of, no one is actually in a hurry to recognize them yet because they want to wait to see how the Taliban form a government, how inclusive it is. But I don't think Western countries are going to be in a great rush to do it. They want to see a bit of time elapse to find out what kind of a rule it's going to be. But So Mullah Abdul Ghani Baradar's input is going to be crucial. He is not right now the top man, but he's very near the top man, along with Habatullah Akhundzada. And they've got other people at the top, Haqqani, for example, Khalil Haqqani from the Haqqani network. These people have been on the outside for 20 years. One of those I mentioned has actually got a price on his head from the US, a bounty on his head, and he's now in charge of security in Kabul.
So that's the higher echelons of the Taliban. But as many people have started to point out, it's the discipline within the foot soldiers that could cause problems for the so-called Taliban version 2. How unified, how disciplined is the Taliban? Who exactly are they?
Well, they've been an incredibly effective fighting force in these last few weeks and months. As soon as they found out that the US was leaving.
Yeah, 20 fucking years, dude. 20 years. They've been an incredibly effective fighting force. They just, dude, they fucking own so hard. Like, how many more times do imperialist forces need to get fucking owned by dudes in flip-flops for them to recognize that, like, I mean, I guess the point is that you have to do imperialism. Like, the entire point is, like, the entire point is getting owned by flip-flop wearing motherfuckers over and over again. You know what I mean? So that, you know, the military industrial complex can keep basically printing money.
That was it. That was a green light to them to accelerate their campaign. And this will go down in military history as one of the most successful insurgent campaigns. And it's desperately sad for all of those, not only Britons and others who fought there and been aid workers and helped Afghanistan become a more progressive, fair, equitable place, which they now fear could be reversed, but also for all those tens of thousands of Afghans who've lost their lives trying to keep their country free from oppressive rule. Now, it may not be as oppressive as we fear, but certainly a lot of people, you've only got to look at the airport to see what tens of thousands of Afghans think about what Taliban rule is likely to be. They will have heard it from their parents. They are terrified. And there's no question that despite the fact that the Taliban have said there is an amnesty for those who have served the previous government, in practice, there are numerous reports of door-to-door, not even knockings. Basically, the Taliban are going round. They've got lists of the people who basically served the government that fought them. And the people they're particularly after are what's called the NDS, the previous Afghan Intelligence Service, and the Special Forces, the 444 and Unit 333.
I'm hiding it because, like, there's imagery, and I don't know if it's actually bad or not. That's why I'm hiding it.
Some of those are now up at the airport trying to basically get away, as you can imagine, because they are marked men.
In the press conference, it was unprecedented at the time, wasn't it? There were a lot of questions off the back of that saying, why do they keep talking about Sharia, the Islamic law? Why is it within the confines of Sharia? Afghanistan is an Islamic country, isn't it? What's the difference going to be? And this is the fear, isn't it? A lot of people, when they hear that, it's like, oh no, what is that going to mean then for the girls, for everyday life? What difference will it bring?
Yeah. Well, Sharia, of course, means Islamic law, as you say. And
Sharia.
And it's open very much.
Damn, he said it with his fucking chest, dude. He got the guttural sound through. Sharia. Did this guy fight? Is he like a ex-special forces guy or something? You don't hear that from, like, usual Westerners. My man said Sharia.
Interpretation. I mean, many countries throughout the Middle East use a form of Sharia. It's all dependent on how it's actually practiced. So Saudi Arabia, for example, is one of those that carries out what's called hudud or HUD punishments to the limit. So, that can be beheading for capital crime, which is rape, armed robbery. And in the past, the 5 years from 1996 to 2001, the Taliban carried out a lot of very brutal punishments, particularly amputations. ISIS, when they had a self-declared caliphate in Syria and Iraq, they did a lot of those. And there's a really ghoulish, hideous element to this because usually these regimes tend to corral the public into forcing them to watch this. They order them. Their police order people to come to the stadium to watch this. And that's what used to happen under the Taliban. They use the football stadium in...
Yeah, maybe fucking Radlibs will like that now. They're like, they're they see, not all bad. Decapitation of rapists, dude. I don't think they're in favor of rehabilitation, chat. So there's that.
In Kabul and elsewhere to watch somebody having his hand and foot lopped off.
Info about him, he
just
lost his life to Islamists in Saudi Arabia and has been the most prominent British journalist in the Middle East for ages.
There will be plenty of people in their ranks who want that sort of thing to continue. There'll be plenty of people in Taliban ranks who say that a woman's place is in the home and in the bedroom, in the kitchen and in the bedroom and nowhere else, or that if she goes out, she must be accompanied, fully veiled, and must be accompanied by a mahram, a male guardian. Others, I think, will perhaps be a bit more pragmatic.
For the record, everything that he is talking about so far, like a lot of the things that he is talking about so far, also exist in, people are going to get mad at me, but Saudi Arabia, which is, of course, our most important ally in the region, obviously. So just do with that information what you will. Saudi Arabia also has a lot more to do with 9/11 than Afghanistan ever did. There's also that.
They will want.
I mean, he mentioned Saudi Arabia as well. I'm just like repeating it.
Country. They're going to be short of money. The IMF has cut off funds. They need trade. They need ties. They'll get some from China, a lot from China, some from Russia, some from Pakistan. Maybe that'll be enough. But I think they'll want to be a bit more open.
Those are the next questions, isn't it? Everybody's saying, how on earth are you going to fund this country? I spoke to a former ambassador earlier this week and brought up the resources within Afghanistan. I mentioned lithium and China's interests in those resources. And he said, well, actually, there are a lot more. And he didn't understand why the British didn't make the most of it. Where does Afghanistan's wealth come from, Frank?
Under the ground. Well, partly under the ground, but of course, I hate to say it, but the illicit wealth is the opium poppy.
Remember how some of the more prominent political commentators on this platform were routinely saying that like Afghanistan is not mineral, Afghanistan's like mineral density was actually unimportant in the grand scheme of things, and like that was a total fabrication or a lie or whatever the fuck people were saying. And then they were just completely wrong about that. And then no one ever was like, hey, that was really fucking wrong, actually. But hey, whatever. Let's keep going.
And Afghanistan is the world's biggest supplier of opium and heroin. So, you know, if the Taliban wanted to, and so far they've said, we're going to try and reduce opium production to zero and we want international help for this, that's commendable. I mean, in 20 years, the US-led coalition wasn't able to do it. Maybe the Taliban can, but it is a major source of money for farmers, for villagers. You know, it funds an entire narco economy in some of the more fertile areas. If they wanted to, they could flood Europe with heroin. They could treble the production. There are thousands of Iranian border guards who've lost their lives trying to stop drug smuggling across the Afghan-Iranian border. So there is that wealth, unfortunately, but you're absolutely right to mention lithium. So rare earth, copper, or other minerals are beneath the surface and are waiting to be exploited. And China has been quite clever on this. It's played the long game. I don't think it's lost a single life so far in Afghanistan, certainly not in combat. It sat back, watched the Americans and its allies, their allies, lose their lives in trying to nation build. But they, meanwhile, have extended the hand of friendship to the Taliban. They're not too concerned about human rights. That's something that troubles other people, but not them. I think they will have some concerns, though, that about their own Uyghur community in Xinjiang province. They will not want to see militant jihadism spreading across that border. So China will have an interest in the suppression of any terror training camps.
Yellow Hat has such hat trademarked. I'll have you know. Who the fuck is Yellow Hat? China will get Afghanistan lithium plus Bolivia lithium, where it has donated millions of vaccines. Easy. Yeah, I mean, that's the name of the game, boys. You might be in a Ben Garrison drawing soon. Why? Did he tweet about me? Bush is out here doing the reverse Hitler atrocities, then painting. That's hilarious, dude. That's pretty funny. That's good. I like that. That's right. Instead of using this moment to earnestly self-reflect on the criminal excesses of the war in Afghanistan, on the toll it took on the people of Afghanistan, the U.S. media collectively erased 20 years of history and rewrote the narrative to make the U.S. a restrained savior. Adam Johnson says, yeah, amazing how over the past week with the U.S. occupation has been retconned as Emily's list with guns, ignoring countless arbitrary killings, U.S.-backed death squads, and Reaper drones blowing up weddings. We've gotten a single simplistic view of a status quo that was 100% hunky-dory. Yeah. So surprising that, you know, people were, Adam doesn't follow you. He's never followed me. I don't think he likes me, but I don't give a shit. He does pretty good work. That's what I care about. There's a new Austin Ox. Yeah, I saw. Not so graceful. Thank you for the 5 tier 1 gift subs.